Welcome, CS308. This is our presentation for the instruction project. For our instruction, we have decided to show you how to insert a new hard drive into a desktop or laptop computer. I'm Robert Ford, and this presentation will benefit anybody who's looking to look for some additional storage in their computer. Next slide.
Hi, my name's Nick Kotenberg, and I have a list of materials here for you. Some things you're going to need are a SATA hard drive, a SATA cable, and a SATA power connector, or a Y splitter if you have no SATA power. You're also going to need a multi-headed screwdriver, a grounding bracket, and some computer you need to add the hard drive to, whether it's a laptop or a desktop. Next slide.
Okay, so my name is Lauren Lockridge. We're on slide 4, which gives us a brief overview of the directions. We're going to go from researching your computer all the way to booting and even troubleshooting. So it's going to be very helpful to those who want to put in an extra hard drive or even just a hard drive as it is. We'll go to slide 5 now.
So the most important thing to figure out first is what type of computer you have. Is it a desktop or a laptop? These are computers that need lots of repairs, as you can see. So maybe a little more obscure to those who don't know. If you don't understand what the difference is, maybe you can consult somebody or look online for some more details. Also, most computers, if they're pre-built from a manufacturer, will have a model number on them along with the company that made them. So you can go to the company's website and plug in your model number, and it will give you all the information you need. Next slide.
So once we've got the computer open, we need to figure out what type of interface we have on our hard drive. The first thing you need to do, obviously, would be to disconnect the power. You do not want to be working on a computer with the power still plugged in. The next thing you want to do is put on your grounding bracelet. This is very important because the insides of the computer are extremely sensitive to static electricity. And this will help keep that static electricity from causing problems and damaging your equipment. After you've got this all done, you then can open the case and take a look inside. Next slide.
If you have a desktop, you'll notice what's called a power supply, and that will have different connectors on it. And there are two main different types. There are a standard power connector, and then there's also a SATA power connector. If you have a standard, you're going to need a Y splitter or just an adapter, like this is an adapter, so you can plug in that adapter, and then plug that into your hard drive, which is the larger port right there. If you have a laptop, most laptops don't have the power supply cables. The cables, or the power connector is directly on the motherboard right here, and it would simply, most laptops are this way, will simply slide in and get the SATA and the power at the same time. Next slide.
Purchase your new hard drive. This relies heavily on the previous steps because you need to be able to determine what size of hard drive you're getting and also what kind of a hookup or interface it needs. If you get a hard drive that's too big, say a desktop hard drive, and try and put that in your laptop, we can see where there'd be issues there. So once you've identified those points, then you can go to your merchant, whether it's online or brick and mortar, and you can go in and buy it. I'd personally recommend either Amazon or Newegg, both very good recommendations. So we'll move on to slide 9.
Thank you. The next thing we need to do is prepare our workspace. Now, the workspace really does need to be very clean, and we need to be able to gather all those materials that we talked about earlier. including the hard drive that we just purchased. Once we have that all together, again, the grounding bracelet. Can't emphasize that enough because, again, you need to make sure that you've discharged all static electricity before working on any of the static sensitive equipment. Once again, we're going to disconnect the power from the computer. Laptop or desktop, doesn't matter. If it's a laptop, you also need to pull the battery to make sure that the power is completely disconnected. Next slide, please.
So we need to prepare our hard drive now that our workspace is ready. This consists of pretty basic and simple things such as removing it from the boxing and the static proof paper that it comes in. I would also make sure that you have your required materials such as the connector and the screws that come with it and everything that should be in your packaging. Just double check those before you move on to your next step. Next slide.
So the connecting and mounting of a hard drive are different between a laptop and a desktop, even though the connectors are the same. Once again, on the laptop, as I showed in an earlier slide, generally speaking, the laptop will just slide in, and sometimes there'll be a mounting bracket that you have to attach to the hard drive, slide it in, and then mount the mounting bracket to the case itself. Another drives like this drive here, there's actually a case that holds the drive down, so you don't need to mount it. And then in a desktop, you need to mount your hard drive to the case itself. If you have a laptop hard drive, and you can mount those in a desktop, but you can't mount a desktop hard drive into a laptop. If you have a laptop hard drive, you need to get a mounting bracket, which will allow you to mount this. Obviously, it's too small hard drive in here. If you have a standard hard drive, SATA hard drive, you can usually slide it in, and then with the holes, screw the hard drive in. Then correctly identify the right SATA cable, plug it into the data port. Then take your SATA power cable, plug it into your power port. If you have a modular power supply, like this cable is for, you would then take this cable and plug it into your power supply. If you have a standard power supply that's not modular, you just find the right power cable and plug it in. You may need an adapter. Next slide.
So very, very basic. Once everything has been put back in place, as far as the manual work is done, you then need to make sure that you've put everything back together. Close the case. There's spinning fans in there. We wouldn't want anything to get caught in it or cause damage. Attaching the power cord would be very crucial if our next step is to turn it on, which it is. So make sure that's done. Then once you have turned the computer on by pressing the power button, there are a few. Depending on the system, the key is different, but there is a key that needs to be pushed in order to enter the BIOS screen, which is generally F1, F2, or the delete keys, and that will take you into your BIOS screen where you can view and diagnose if you've properly installed the hard drive. So we'll then move on to the next slide, 13.
Thank you. So the last part is troubleshooting. What if you did everything and it still doesn't work? The drive doesn't show up in the BIOS, for example. Well, what you'll need to do is go back through the steps that we've presented. Remove the power from the computer, make sure that all those connections are good and tight, and then power back on. More than likely, it was something that was just a little loose. What if the drive shows up in your BIOS but then doesn't show up in Windows or your operating system? Well, that's really beyond the scope of this presentation, but if you just type in initialize my drive in Windows or Mac in Google, you'll be able to see how to quickly initialize that drive and be able to use it. What if you don't have an extra slot in your computer? Well, there are external drives that you can buy instead of something that would go internally. And then what if you have extra screws at the end of the taking the computer apart and putting it back together again. This tends to happen quite frequently. Usually you don't have to worry too much about it, but what I would do is just go back through the steps, make sure that you followed them back through, and then find out where that extra screw was. Thank you very much for watching our presentation. The last couple slides are some basic acronyms and definitions that we used. Again, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.